I thought there was no way out. Yeah, I used to be scared of the light, and I was swallowed by doubt. I'd forgotten what freedom was like. Puzzle pieces on the floor, they don't fit in anymore. I'm changing, I'm changing. When they ask you who I am, what I've done and where I've been, there's one thing I want you to say. Tell them I'm brave, see it on my face. I am bigger than anything coming my way. It's a new day, now I'm not afraid. So if anyone asks you how I overcame, you can tell them I'm brave. Some days I come out on top, and some days I can't catch a break. But when the fire don't stop, I won't wish my troubles away. I've been down and I've been up, but if you look at me now, I'm moving into better, brighter days. Yeah, this hope is here to stay. There's only one thing you can say. Tell them I'm brave, see it on my face. I am bigger than anything coming my way. It's a new day, now I'm not afraid. So if anyone asks you how I overcame, you can tell them I'm brave. We're gonna fight, gonna be alright. We're gonna fight together every step of the way. Tell them we're brave, see it on our face. We are bigger than anything coming our way. It's a new day, we're not afraid. So if anyone asks you how we overcame, you can tell them we're brave. You can tell them we're brave. You can tell them we're brave.
Welcome to This Is My Brave, College Edition 2021. My name is Audrey Grubb, and I am a Northeastern and Lesley University alum. I graduated last May with my master's in clinical mental health counseling and school counseling, and I'm currently working as a therapist at an outpatient counseling center. It has been an honor to produce the 2021 college edition of This Is My Brave. I have been involved with This Is My Brave since sharing my story in the Boston Spring 2018 show. I co-produced the first ever college edition in 2019-2020, and now I am here with a brand new, inspiring group of storytellers today. 2020 was a challenging year for all of us. Our 6 brave storytellers have been so dedicated to being a part of this movement and have worked with us through trying times, changing plans, and everything else that life has thrown at them. I am so grateful for the commitment shown for themselves and to each other. Not having the opportunity to meet in person and working solely through a virtual platform is not ideal. However, they have still managed to craft their stories so perfectly to inspire and enlighten you, as well as leave you with the hope that recovery is possible. In a typical year, nearly 40% of college students experience a significant mental health issue. Add on a global pandemic, and mental health is now, more than ever, at the forefront on college campuses. According to PBS, 3 out of 4 American college students between the ages of 18 and 24 are reporting poor mental health tied to the pandemic. That is 75% of American college students. The stress, worry, and social and financial burdens are threatening the well-being of students. So we are here with This Is My Brave to break the silence, put names and faces to real stories, and to begin the conversation that it's okay not to be okay. You do not have to suffer in silence. Recovery is possible. Prepare to be inspired by these incredible storytellers. Use these stories as inspiration, as conversation starters, or as a way to let someone know that they're not alone. Thank you so much for joining us. By attending this virtual performance, you are helping to expand the conversation of mental health on college campuses. It is through storytelling that we are able to connect with one another and reinforce our belief that storytelling saves lives. So let's get started.
Hi there, I'm Eden. I graduated from Boston University in 2018 and am currently applying to graduate programs for nonprofit leadership. I live in Fenway and work as the outreach director for Down Under School of Yoga, a Boston-based yoga studio. When I'm not there, I am practicing yoga myself. You can also find me meditating, learning, reading, hiking, and exploring. I love to get creative with vision boards, journaling, and writing too. I host a bi-monthly podcast, The OK Days, where I change the way we talk about mental health. Each episode is a celebration of people and how we can still find the more than okay. I would have and record these kinds of conversations all day long if I could. I first became aware of my mental health when I moved to New York after graduating college. After a few months in, I felt really confused, unsure of who I was or what I was supposed to be doing. I felt lonely and disconnected. My mental health took another big dip at the start of and throughout the pandemic. I lost my job, moved back home to the Boston area, and felt confused all over again. I wasn't sure who I was or what to do again. The anxiety I first noticed in New York amplified to even more anxiety, and now perfectionism. My mindfulness practices help me cope and manage my mental health. Through yoga, meditation, journaling, and self-reflection, I remember that we all have mental health, that my self-awareness is a gift and one of my best qualities. I ask questions, try to listen to my body, and lean on my family and friends. I wanted to share my story with This Is My Brave because we need to talk about mental health more. The work that This Is My Brave is doing is exactly how we do that. When more of us share, others may hear their stories within hours. My piece is my story of anxiety and perfectionism as a guided meditation. I first found meditation when I was feeling sad, but not sad enough to talk to a therapist at the time. Meditation became my therapy. This will be a 7-minute body scan as I take you through my own anxiety points. I'll offer mantras that have supported me as I voice some of my own inner dialogue. If you feel comfortable and safe, I invite you to close your eyes or dim your gaze as you begin to settle into your space, your body, and your breath. Slow, deep breath in. Slow, deep breath out. Slow, deep breath in. Slow, deep breath out. I already feel my obsession, my need for control, or for it all to be perfect, for this to be good. Lay your palms softly on your legs. It is okay if they do not fall perfectly. Press your feet into the earth beneath you. It is okay if they do not land perfectly. Lift your chest forward. Release your shoulders from your ears. Notice the room you are in without opening your eyes. It is okay if they don't all stay this way perfectly. Start to imagine a glowing light above your head. Your light, your attention. Follow this light through your forehead, your mind, wrapping through your ears, behind your closed eyes. It is here where I feel my anxiety. Cloudy, attached. I observe my thoughts. Why did that person react the way that they did? Did I say something to upset them? Am I annoying? It was probably my fault. I wish this was going better. Slow, deep breath in. Slow, deep breath out. Now, follow this light down your face, your neck, and your shoulders. Become aware of your upper back. Land this light at your chest, your heart space. It is here where I feel my anxiety. Tightness, heaviness, that hurt my feelings. I do more things alone these days. Am I too sensitive? I am mean to myself, but kind to others. I hate confrontation. I wish I could tell that person that they upset me. Slow, deep breath in. Slow, deep breath out. Now, your light drips through and around your belly and your lower back. Passes through your arms and your hands, your seat, your hip bones. Stay with this light along your upper legs, your knees, your lower legs, and finally your feet. It is here where I feel my anxiety. Restless, stuck. Do people feel my energy? I am too much. My positivity scares people away. I keep moving and moving to distract myself. I don't know how to truly rest. Slow, deep breath in. Slow, deep breath out. Let this light, your light, stay here at your toes as we begin to sit in a few moments of silence. Continue to come back to your breath, the rise and fall of your body as you slowly, deeply breathe in and out, remembering that you are the light. I am here. When I feel most anxious or most frustrated at feeling like my perfectionism slows me down or holds me back, I come right here to my body and my breath. It took me time to build this practice. It is not easy because it can be uncomfortable. As I began to commit to this for a few minutes a day, it became something I craved every day. Start to slowly open your eyes. Thank you. My name is Eden, and this is my Brave.
Hi, my name is LaToya Robinson. Some people know me as Miss Toya Tiffany. I'm a graduate student at Lesley University, class of 2022. I was accepted into the Expressive Therapies program with a presidential scholarship to study drama therapy. My spare time, that is minimal. I'm a mom, grad student, teacher, and actress in the midst of a pandemic. However, when I'm lucky enough to get it, I lose myself in art, writing, poetry, painting, listening to music, lots and lots and lots of reading, and my all-time favorite guilty pleasure, binge watching. I first became aware of mental health at a young age, before 10, murmurs and cold talk. I definitely heard the word schizophrenia often. However, understanding mental illness existed, that was in high school, junior year psychology class. I was hooked in. I entered college freshman year as a psych major with the goal of earning my PhD. However, sophomore year, I was sexually assaulted and life changed. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. It comes with all the symptoms of PTSD with extra color or darkness. My darkness made me aware that my mental health needed attention. I was diagnosed with depression many years before that, and at times it's been quite severe. I've always been honest with people. However, I always get the list. You're so strong, so talented, so pretty, so smart, so blessed. And I always remind them that I am oh so human. So without the personal support, I continue to lose myself in art. The theater brings me peace. Right now, I'm in rehearsal for Shakespeare's The Tempest. Drama is my therapy. Acting, directing, teaching theater, My professional work is intentional for its healing and transformative power. I practice yoga and I'm certified in trauma-informed yoga for youth. I also regularly attend trauma-informed psychotherapy. However, the best coping mechanism ever is playing pretend with my 4-year-old son. His love and acceptance has the most healing power. And this is why I wanted to share my story with This Is My Brave. I want him to know that I never gave up on my goals just because life threw me a curveball. Also, culturally speaking, as a Black American woman, discussing mental health is challenging, as well as articulating to others, utilizing my intuitive artistic nature intentionally towards better health and wellness and overall quality for my people in this country. Silence is killing us. The following piece speaks to the silence and its repercussions. It speaks to the discount we place on the lives of others and the dissonant space it creates for humanity. I know my body. Now, this is a phrase that if my cousins who grew up with me and my sister heard, they'd giggle. It was a phrase my family said that I stated routinely. This memory hit me as of late. This memory, like many others, I locked away to distance and protect myself from any distressing thoughts or emotions. This is typical of anyone struggling with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and the disassociation is real. Memories get scattered, but they don't disappear. So this one popped. I know my body. The only thing I keep asking myself is why a 6 or 7-year-old would keep saying that. What I do know is that the fear has always resided deep within my body. It never goes away. The fear and that phrase are connected. Truly to this day, I'm not definitively sure how, but the fear stays with me, always has. At this age, I'm assuming it always will. It's my silent partner, a terrible one. Long ago, I wrote a poem that true creativity guides my journey to suppress the fear's oppression. Yeah, creativity. Writing, performing, directing theatrical productions, they heal me. See, I'm not sure what happened to me as a kid, but my body remembers every day. Maybe that full memory will pop one day. I actually hope it doesn't. I was sexually assaulted on spring break when I was in college, 5 months before my 21st birthday. That memory is enough. And due to lots of weed and alcohol, that memory is choppy thought too. As I've attempted to build personal relationships, I've learned no one wants to listen to choppy thought. And so I take all the pieces and I create. I also listen to the stories of others, unsure of where to unload the insecurities they embody that manifested due to the circumstances beyond their control. And this is person A. How did I get here? Talking to you. Talking about this unspoken taboo of the mental abyss. Speaking to you about the elephant in the room who keeps throwing tantrums and having fits, keeps bellowing and knocking over shit. How did I get here? The secrets, the lies, the keep it all inside, the stop trying to find the truth. Lost youth. Could search for the fountain, but what would it bring me back to? How did I get here? Well, it's the stories, the whispers of Auntie so-and-so who's a bit off, the adult kitchen powwows filled with gin and smoke, the private meetings so the kids won't know that Uncle such and such been touching more than himself, and maybe it's not a good idea to have him in the house. Then there's the story of person A, who was sexually assaulted by his brother. The story of person B, who received no protection from mother because mommy wanted daddy, but daddy liked him younger. Person C was molested by a neighborhood boy. Her family shunned her for allowing herself to be used as a toy. Person D told me at 15 she was attacked by strange men. One dropped a seed in, whom she chose to raise. Person E, well, her uncle convinced her at 11 that she was woman enough to please him. He knew that she was ready because she finally had her period. Person F, his father took his own life. Mom divorced dad postpartum. Person G, their father did the same. No longer able to hide his pain. Person H said they had to fight every day in a group home to be clothed and fed. Mommy and daddy chose the streets instead. Person I, their father was killed, mom on drugs. Now they're searching for solace, kisses, hugs, and perfection that doesn't exist. All these stories, an anonymous list of incest, shame, murder, pain, trauma, oppression, and silence. Interpersonal violence we inflict on ourselves because the world is so full of shit. Who can you trust to tell? Me. I listen to the stories of persons A through I. Fortunately, I also listen to the stories of persons J through Z. And then there's the story of me. So now you know how I got here, talking to you, highlighting the unspoken taboo, doing the one thing my mother told me not to do, but fuck it, I'm releasing these demons and I'm living my truth. I've been raped, molested, emotionally neglected, left alone to accept it, and I did. Kept moving forward despite it. The fear, always deep within, lurking. I felt like a sin. And my presence was rejected if I didn't try to fit in. And I never did try. I've often been told the words I speak lead others to leak. They say that I trigger their emotional vulnerability. So they tell me these stories and pretend that they didn't. Their public image requires silence, silence of the monster within. So here I am, talking to you, keeping distance between you, my, and their truth. Here I am, talking to you and soothing this elephant before he fucks up the room. My name is LaToya Robinson, and this is my brave.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mitchell Bussiere, and I am a recent graduate of Suffolk University with a bachelor's degree in psychology and English. I'm currently living in Boston down in Mission Hill, and like many, I've been kind of stuck inside over the last year, but I've been using my time in the forced solitude to continue to work on some areas that I'm passionate about, which is mainly comedy and writing. I've worked in Boston's comedy scene for a while now, and I've enjoyed every single minute of it. For a few years now, comedy and writing have been my biggest outlets for the anxieties and struggles that are constantly plaguing my brain. I was diagnosed around the age of 7 with OCD and generalized anxiety disorder. And over the course of the years following my diagnosis, I also got to experience the pleasures of depression to top everything off. I've had a few serious bouts of depression, which combined with my OCD obsession surrounding suicide were quite miserable. But fortunately, I've always had the support of my family, friends, and also access to therapy and medications that help to alleviate some of the burden for me. Other outlets of mine were sports and baking when I was younger, and in recent years, as I mentioned, I've also turned almost exclusively to writing and performing. I got involved in this organization because it fit perfectly with my belief that storytelling really helps to end stigma. I'm always a little bit apprehensive to share my story, but found that through humor, I can convey most of the struggles in a way that both me and an audience can comprehend and relate to. The piece that I'm performing today is written as a news broadcast from my brain as it struggles to relay the thoughts and emotions coming to a boil just below the surface of my mind. It's slightly sarcastic, it has some dark humor dispersed throughout, but I think that it's relatively accurate to how my brain works, using humor to combat what I'm afraid of and what I'm feeling in the day-to-day. So I hope that everybody enjoys. Hello and welcome. This is a broadcast from the brain of Mitchell Bussiere and is intended for the sole viewership of the party previously mentioned. To all others who may be tuning in, we say welcome and good luck. What you're about to hear is privileged information, so take it as you will. I now speak to Mitchell directly with this emergency broadcast. We here in your brain have recognized an increase in anxiety as a response to the chaotic state of the world you are living in. And many of your old friends up here have some messages they wish to pass along. Let me remind you that these are the sporadic thoughts of the subconscious, and most are nothing more than enticement to drag you back into a depressive state of anxiety, regret, and obsession. That being said, we will proceed. First off, your obsessive thoughts would like to remind you that if you're ever in need of a distraction from the stress of life, they would be happy to comply with some of your old favorite obsessions and compulsions. Examples they wish to highlight include, but are not limited to, washing your hands, straightening your glasses, re-examining your friendships, compulsively sharing your every action for outside approval, and, an oldie but a goodie, contemplating suicide. They do understand that you're aware that these obsessions are, in your own words, nothing more than downtrodden ramblings of an obtrusive thought, but would like to put in that these obtrusive thoughts have to come from somewhere, and they recommend spending at least 14 hours a day obsessing over them to ensure certainty that you are, in fact, a sane human being. Next, a brief word from your anxieties. They want to voice their displeasure at your use of medication to subdue them. Never before have they felt such disrespect from a mind they claim to be their own. Did you not enjoy the constant feeling of discontent, the overpowering need to apologize, the belief that there was something you had done wrong, and they aren't just mad at you for using the medication to subdue them? Oh no, they think the pot was a bad choice too. What led you to believe you could just flood them with chemicals, natural or synthetic, and expect them to wash away like a child caught in a tidal wave? Please, just let them live their lives. And on that note, they want you to know that your depression also wants a word when you get a chance. He missed the days of self-pity and lack of energy that led you to crash on the couch with him every night watching Kung Fu Panda 2. Just say the word, and they're all willing to come back to help you cope with the constant disappointment that is everyday life. Quickly, I also have a word from suicidal ideation, who's recently come out of slumber to see if you've hopped your way back onto the chopping block. He wants to apologize first and foremost for some of the ideas he put in your head. He says he recognizes now that strangling yourself with a seatbelt or drowning yourself in a toilet were idiotic, but wishes to remind you that he himself was never really sure you wanted to kill yourself. He simply was providing a service in recognition of that pesky obsession with suicide you couldn't quite shake. But if the day ever comes where you do want to die, you know where to find him. Finally, a note from Luther himself. For those of you in the crowd who don't know, Luther is an imaginary dragon who is the personification of all Mitchell's mental struggles. He created him as a child, and the two have a love-hate relationship that borders on abusive and makes everyone feel uncomfortable. Luther has been known to be quite blue, but we have asked him to tone down his language for today's broadcast. However, we do not make any promises. Here now, we read his note. Hey, Egghead. It's good to be back and finally get fired up again. Get it? Fire? Like a dragon? It's been a while, hasn't it? And I gotta tell you, I'm glad to see your hippie, drugged-out, long-hair phase is over. Not the best look for you, if I do say so myself. And before you get all defensive and nervous and, start doing that meditation bullshit or whatever you do, look, I just want to say I know that you want to do well. And I know that you think all these insecurities, depressions, and obsessions with suicide are here to hurt you. Look, that's a bunch of bullshit, man. Look, we always wanted the best for you. We were just being thrown a bunch of curveballs that we didn't know what to do with. All those daily stresses you were coming into contact with were a catalyst for us. Not our fault you can't handle life. And look, I know it's hard, and I know you don't want us around, but don't forget, we're part of you. I mean, maybe not the part you wanted to have, but beggars really can't be choosers, can they? And come on, look where we've gotten you. If you hadn't spent all those years of your life obsessing, you wouldn't have to learn to look past the surface of anything. Look where that's gotten you. Man, you can write like it's nobody's business. And what about those anxieties you hate that guided your life? At least you've got a moral compass. I mean, how many times has that guided you in the right direction? How many people can say they actually have a Jiminy Cricket living up in their head? And hey, come on, what about me? We've argued so many times you have a handful of material for that comedy stuff you've been doing. You're only who you are today because of what you went through. I mean, look, Every person has a story to tell. What the hell makes you think that every story is happy? Look, I know a lot of the stuff you've gone through hurt, and you have every right to hate us. But we're never going away, so why not embrace us? And look, I am not at all saying that you need to be proud of it all, because I know a lot of it sucked. But God damn it, man, use it. Don't lose touch with that side of you. Don't. I mean, it may make you feel like a freak sometimes, but who isn't? My name is Mitchell Bussiere, and this is my Brave.
Hi, my name is Ruby. I'm a junior at Brandeis University, currently living at home in Louisville, Kentucky, and taking classes remotely. In my spare time, I like to play games on my Switch and watch crappy TV shows. I'm also in the middle of learning to cook and bake some basic things for myself. I'm 21, so it's about time. I first became aware of my mental health when I was very young, probably about 3 or 4, because I was extremely scared of people in costumes and dogs. Other than being scared and cautious as a kid, my life was pretty normal until I developed symptoms of panic disorder and anxiety at 14. I began taking medication and going to therapy at 14 as well. Then at 15, with so far no improvement in my anxiety, I developed depression for the first time. Junior year of high school was particularly hard, but I got through it and had a pretty normal senior year. By then, my anxiety symptoms and panic attacks had pretty much disappeared, and I was doing okay depression-wise. Starting college was hard, and I talk more about my college journey in my piece. Medication and therapy have helped me cope, but also a key skill I've developed after years of mental health challenges is knowing when to reach out for help and learning to recognize when my symptoms aren't real, which can be hard for people with psychotic illnesses. I wanted to tell my story with This Is My Brave because I felt like people weren't having raw and honest conversations about mental illness. At least I wasn't, and I wanted to spark discussion about this topic. Psychotic disorders are particularly stigmatized, and it's important that people talk about what they're going through so we can try and end that stigma. As I mentioned before, the piece I'm performing focuses on my mental health journey through college and my battle with symptoms of both depression and psychosis. I also discuss my journey to my hopefully last diagnosis. By the time I was 15, I had been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, was taking medication, and going to therapy. My first semester of college had its ups and downs, but after a medication change during winter break, I hit a new low. I wasn't eating, I was sleeping almost all day, I was missing classes, I was crying all the time, and I was focusing on death and dying. Then, while walking to the library, a thought popped into my head that I didn't recognize as my own. It was telling me to jump in front of a car. I didn't want to listen to it, but I was scared I wouldn't be able to resist. Paralyzed, I immediately called my mom asking for help. Soon, employees from the school counseling center had arrived to come get me, and an ambulance was called to take me to the hospital. I was terrified, but some part of me knew that I needed help. Once I was admitted, I remember thinking, I hope I never have to come back here. That was my first hospitalization, but luckily I had the support of friends and family through my second and third hospitalizations as well. My mom was by my side every time, flying up from Louisville, Kentucky to Boston, which was not one, but 2 flights each time. Because my mom usually couldn't get there until I was admitted, family friends who lived in the area stepped in and took care of me until she got there. I still feel a little guilty about the fact that all these people dropped everything to take care of me in those moments, but most of all, I am grateful that I have so many people who love me. Even when my brain was telling me to kill myself, I never really wanted to die because in those low moments I was surrounded by friends and family who I knew cared deeply for me. After a little over a week in the hospital, I started to feel better and was discharged. I went back to school and had a successful semester, despite the difficult start. Coincidentally, I first began to experience symptoms of paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations while I was taking abnormal psychology, the semester after my first hospitalization during the start of my sophomore year. Although I fully understood what I was learning about psychotic disorders in class, it was difficult to recognize those same symptoms in myself. Hallucinations involve seeing, hearing, or feeling things that aren't real. Delusions involve believing things that aren't real. And paranoia usually involves unrealistic distrust and suspicion. Most often, people with psychosis feel that the symptoms they're experiencing are real, and that's what was happening to me. That semester, I spent a lot of time walking around campus alone and began to suspect that someone was following me. As the paranoia progressed, I became more and more sure of it. I could feel someone behind me, I could hear footsteps, and eventually I began to believe that someone was trying to kill me. I was scared to tell anyone about how I was feeling and about how terrified I was. I was worried no one would believe me. Eventually, I decided it was best not to leave my room. At this point, I couldn't function normally anymore, and it became necessary for other people to step in and get me help. This is what led to my second hospitalization. I again left feeling better than when I had gone in, eventually realizing that what I was experiencing were symptoms of an illness and not reality. What illness? The doctors could not figure out. I remember my discharge papers listed my diagnosis as psychosis NOS. NOS stands for not otherwise specified. Even after 9 days in the hospital, some of which overlapped with finals, I was able to finish the semester with an extension from one of my professors. But over winter break that year, the frequency of my hallucinations seemed to increase, and I started spring semester on shaky ground. A little over 2 months into the semester, I reached the tipping point. I wouldn't eat or take medication for fear of being poisoned, and I wouldn't leave my room. Eventually, some family friends coaxed me outside and into their car so I could be taken to the hospital. I honestly don't remember much after that. Psychosis can mess with your memory. What I do know is that I was really going through it. Hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, all of it. The thing I remember most is being scared to death. However, with the combination of encouragement and care from my mom and the doctors, nurses, and staff at the hospital, I was started on a new antipsychotic medication and began to feel better. It was at that hospital that I decided to take a leave of absence from school so that I could focus on my recovery. I realized that my symptoms were exacerbated by stress and that I needed time to learn how to care for myself properly, to manage this new illness and to care for my mental and emotional health, which I had neglected so far. When I was deciding whether or not to leave school, a social worker in the hospital said, "If you leave now, you'll probably never come back." Luckily, I proved her wrong, and now I am back at Brandeis in an online capacity. As I mentioned before, I am amazingly lucky to have this support system of family and friends. I definitely don't want to discount that. But even with a mom who's a social worker for adults with serious mental illness, I found it very difficult to talk about my experiences in the hospital with her or with anyone else in my support system. I want to be able to process the difficult things I've experienced, but heavy stuff like that doesn't come up in everyday conversation, and I found that when I do bring it up, people are quick to try and end the conversation. Even for people who support you the most, it can be hard to truly understand what you're going through, both in the hospital and when you have to live with those memories afterward. That's why I jumped at the opportunity to do this as my brave, in order to process my own emotions around my journey and to start a conversation about mental health that I believe many people weren't having. I know I wasn't having it. It was during my time away from school that I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. Schizoaffective disorder is characterized by symptoms of depression combined with symptoms of psychosis. I guess I'm lucky I don't just have a mood disorder like depression or just have a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia. I have both. To manage my symptoms today, I take oral antidepressants and get a long-acting antipsychotic injection once a month. It's a little embarrassing to have to get a shot in your butt every month, but trust me, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't worth it. I'm actually currently in the process of reducing my dose of antidepressants and possibly going off of them completely. It's hard to tell if I feel good because of my medication or in spite of it, but I told my prescriber that now that I've been in a stable place for several years, I want to try life without an antidepressant. I've been on one for almost 8 years. I also go to therapy. Medication isn't a cure-all, and therapy helps you learn the skills to manage your illness for the long term. Although mental illness can sound scary and sometimes can feel scary, my life is not much different than anyone else managing a long-term physical illness. In the beginning, it was hard to manage, but after almost 2 years of treatment and practice dealing with symptoms, I live a pretty normal life. Schizoaffective disorder is a chronic illness, and like all mental illnesses, there is no cure. but I think all of us deal with things in life that test our strength and resilience. This is mine. My name is Ruby, and this is my brave.
Hello, my name is Nicole Zizzi. I'm in my final semester of my Master's in Architecture degree at Northeastern University. I live in the Boston area where I'm also a professional dancer and choreographer. I'm the co-founder and artistic director of a local concert dance company called Evolve Dynamics, and I spend all of my free time dancing, choreographing, and producing shows. A lot of our work is based in movement improvisation, which we believe is a way of authentically connecting to ourselves and with others. Movement improv has always been a tool that I've used for managing my mental health in addition to my therapy and medication. I came across This Is My Brave while I was producing a show for Evolve, which used dance and movement as a platform for ending stigma and sparking conversations about mental health. We had interludes of spoken stories, both recorded and performed live, and we had a few local This Is My Brave performers join us, which included our amazing producer, Audrey. After the show, I decided to become a This Is My Brave storyteller too, because I wholeheartedly believe that storytelling, no matter the form, can indeed save lives. I now invite you into my brain as I share my story through my words and my movement. Mistake, an action or judgment that is misguided or wrong. Wrong, not correct or true, incorrect, unjust, dishonest, or immoral. Have you ever stopped to think about the word mistake? If not, that's okay, because I do obsessively think about it, and I think I'm going to share those thoughts with you. So here we go. First, let me preface this by saying that I do not think in the same way as most people. In fact, nothing about me is, quote, normal. That's another word I think a lot about, but I'll save that speech for another day. I've suffered from anxiety and depression my whole life, but I've only recently found out that I'm also autistic. And this comes with all sorts of other fun diagnoses. I have ASD, PTSD, ADHD, OCD, pretty much any acronym you can think of, and also a sensory-based eating disorder called anxious avoidant food intake disorder, which also has an acronym, but my dyslexia keeps me from remembering that one too. Along with all the acronyms, I am also grieving a significant loss. I lost my father in 2019 to glioblastoma, which is a deadly brain cancer. And we lost him only 18 months after his diagnosis. My younger siblings and I became his full-time caregivers as he was fading away from this world. All of these things might sound overwhelming, and I'd be lying if I didn't admit that they can be at times. But sometimes I like to think of them as my superpowers, because I see and think about things in ways that most people find challenging. I don't fit into any boxes that our society has arbitrarily assigned us to fit into, and I'm actually quite happy with that. All right, now back to my obsessive thinking about mistakes. So why does the definition of mistake contain the word wrong? Are mistakes really unjust, dishonest, or immoral? I don't think so. Despite my recent diagnoses, I've actually been in therapy for quite a while now. And if I had to summarize what I've learned into 2 words, it would be unlearning and redefining. So I'm going to share the ways with you in which I've unlearned and redefined the word mistake for myself. I actually think mistakes are quite beautiful. I love when I make mistakes, even if it's not always so fun. I love watching people make mistakes. I even love watching dogs make mistakes, mostly because they're cute, but also because they don't feel shame in the same way that humans do. My ADHD brain likes to jump from topic to topic, so here's some more information about me. I like to tell people that I'm a professional child. I really love to play. Sometimes I even make a little money by playing with my friends. To put this into neurotypical terms, this is my way of saying that I am an artist. And as an artist, mistakes are an integral part of my creative process. And I'm one of those artists who believe that the process is way more important than the final outcome. I like when I make mistakes because it means I'm learning, growing, cultivating knowledge, and evolving my art. I also love watching others go through the journey of self-discovery that follows a mistake because I am learning by witnessing and being present with them. I believe that there is a big problem within our culture of perfectionism. It shames us for making mistakes, when in reality, making mistakes is exactly what makes us human. Soon, I'm going to do a little dance for you. Normally, I would be jumping and turning and kicking and floating around the stage like a little forest fairy that I sometimes pretend I am, but I am currently recovering from surgery. I have this condition called hip dysplasia, and no, not only dogs get it, although I do identify with dogs more than I do with people sometimes. That's just another one of my autistic superpowers. I had a hip reconstruction for my left hip a few years ago, and I just had my right hip done at the end of this past January. The nerd in me actually finds the surgery to be kind of cool. Plug your ears if you get squeamish. My surgeon cut off the socket part of my hip, rotated it, and then screwed it all back together. Gives a new meaning to one of my catchphrases, I'm all screwed up. I do think it's a cool surgery, but it's also very traumatic for a dancer to lose their ability to dance, especially when that dancer is autistic and dance is a special interest of theirs. Another one of my catchphrases is, I just really love dancing. Aside from being my biggest passion in life, dance has done so much for me. It's allowed me to make deep and meaningful relationships. It's given me a tool to help regulate myself and my emotions, and a tool for me to express myself when words aren't accessible for my brain, which can make a performance like this a little difficult, but here I am making more mistakes as I try to grow my skill set. I will perform a dance for you in my chair, and you will see that it is not perfect. As I improvise, I am constantly and consistently making mistakes. I see these moments as little gifts from the universe. They are moments of surrender. They are moments that teach me what it is like to be truly and wholly human in a way that my superpower-infused nervous system can comprehend. And none of it is unjust, dishonest, or immoral. In fact, it is quite the opposite of that. My mistakes are my art form.
Everything you say. up now, I see your heart quaking. You are afraid of slipping away. Don't give up now, let yourself listen.
My name is Nicole, and this is my Brave.
Hi, my name is David Andrade. I was born in Los Angeles, California, but I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. My education journey is pretty interesting because it was very non-traditional. I dropped out of high school and then I attended Bunker Hill Community College. Bunker Hill Community College is a 2-year school, but it took me 7 years. After I transferred to Northeastern University and I started to study business, but I realized I hated that. Eventually, after working with my therapist, I realized that I really wanted to study social work. So I decided to attend Lesley University because I felt like it would give me the best path considering where I was at. That was 2 years ago, and I'm happy to say that this May I will be graduating, and I have officially gotten 2 acceptance letters to Masters in Social Work programs, one for BU and one for Simmons University. In my spare time, I love listening to podcasts and reading. If you ever need a good book recommendation, I would recommend Malcolm Gladwell. I think that those are some of my favorite ways of learning. So I also love going to the gym and working out. In the last 2 years, I've gotten into lifting and playing basketball. And on top of that, I also love spending time with my friends and just checking in with them and make sure that they're living well. I first became aware of my mental health because when I was younger, I had very strong feelings and I never really knew how to handle those feelings. I would say that my mental health journey really started to spiral in 2016 when one of my closest friends committed suicide. I started to develop a lot of bad habits, like drinking and self-medicating. And then I think I hit rock bottom at the end of 2018 when I lost a job that I really felt was helping my community. It was a very painful day for me, and I didn't know if I would ever really bounce back from that. In terms of coping with my mental health challenges, I like to practice self-care. So I do the things that I mentioned earlier. I go to the gym. I like reading, writing, and spending time with my loved ones. I also like to take the time to meditate and reflect on my journey. So much of my mental health is rooted in my early childhood trauma. My mentors always make sure to tell me, don't suffer in silence. So I've learned to speak up, and I think that that's what bravery looks like. I realized that I wanted to be a part of This Is My Brave College Edition when I saw the impact that connecting with my therapist had, and I truly believe that it saved my life. To me, I realized that this was something that can really help change the trajectory of the lives of individuals and families and communities. I decided to dedicate my life to trying to help those who are struggling with their mental health. To me, this was a perfect opportunity for me to raise mental health awareness and also help end the negative stigma that's attached to mental health, especially amongst men of color. The piece that I am performing today, I think, is very honest. I think it's something that I can be proud of, and I hope that it can help others. When I first started connecting with people at This Is My Brave, I heard a saying that is, brave multiplies brave. And that's something that really resonated with me and something that I was hoping to embody in my piece. Brave multiplies brave. First, let me thank you all for taking the time to listen to my story. My story involves a lot of trauma, and trauma comes in many different forms. Trauma can be the loss of a parent due to divorce or incarceration. Trauma can be a string of negative and hostile interactions with people who are supposed to serve and protect you. Trauma can be going to bed hungry every night. Trauma can also be being violated emotionally, physically, or sexually. These are all examples of some of the traumas that I faced as a child. My relationship with trauma started before I was born. It started when my father would hit my mother and even pulled a gun on her on several occasions. My sister, who was 4 years older than me, witnessed many of these events. The ripple effect of these incidents was a household that would use violence and verbal abuse as a common form of communication. Because of my trauma, I started to consider suicide at the age of 8 years old. Because of my experiences, I withdrew from school and I ran away from home on multiple occasions. Eventually, I dropped out of high school at 15. As time went on, I didn't trust anyone. I lived in constant fear. I never spoke about my trauma until I was 32 years old, when I finally opened up to my girlfriend. When I first talked to my girlfriend about my childhood trauma, she cringed. I know that she didn't mean to, but when I went into the details of my experiences, she just couldn't help it. My trauma took an emotional toll on her and even created a strain on our relationship. I was always scared to speak out about my experiences because I felt like people would view me differently. Eventually, I realized that I viewed myself differently and I was projecting those feelings onto others. My therapist was able to help me look inward, and I was able to understand how my trauma was guiding my decisions. When I was younger, I would use anger to create a shield so that no one could hurt me or figure out what was wrong with me. But as I got older, the anger evolved into depression, anxiety, insecurity. I would use drugs, alcohol, and risky behavior as unhealthy coping mechanisms. My decisions were an attempt to gain control and establish my masculinity. I tried to sleep with as many women as possible and love them so passionately that all the pain would go away and nobody would know my secret. As for the pain, I decided to do drugs, a lot of drugs. I also drank, because these things had a way of numbing the pain every time I looked in the mirror. Eventually, I was able to accept my trauma as a part of me, and I started to work on rebuilding my spirit and my self-esteem. I learned to be kind to myself, to forgive the little kid in me that was taken advantage of. One of the most impactful moments came when I told my therapist that I didn't believe that I could accomplish the things that I dreamed about. Then my therapist told me that he believed in me. It scared me to hear these words, but I believed him. And eventually, I started to believe in myself. Those were words that had never been told to me before, a level of encouragement that I had never received from my mother or my father. For much of my life, I struggled with the idea of my masculinity. I never wanted to admit to my boys that I was the kid that got touched, let alone the more perverse details of my trauma. The fact is that boys who have never been molested always believe that it could never happen to them. Growing up, I remember the topic would come up and boys would always say something like, man, I would have fucked him up. I would have killed someone if they did that to me. And they never really realized that it was probably going to be someone really close to them, someone that they trusted and loved, someone who would make them feel safe, someone who was heavily invested in their family dynamic. I just always remember nodding along and saying, yeah, me too, or it couldn't be me, and hoping that my response was convincing enough to avoid any more involvement in these conversations. One of the biggest tests in my mental health journey was sharing my story with my male friends. I was always scared of how they would view me afterward. Could they still see me as a man in their eyes? Would they still respect me? Would they look at me any differently? And finally, I decided that I was tired of carrying these demons around. I decided that I would start off by telling a very close friend of mine, someone who I've known since first grade. In fact, one time when I was a kid, I was about to get jumped by some older boys in my neighborhood, and he stepped in to help me out. We both got our asses kicked, but at least I wasn't alone. To me, my boy was fearless, and I really did feel like he wouldn't judge me. As I told him some of the details of my experience, he started to cry. And I said, bro, it's all good, man. I'm working with a therapist. I'm getting better. Like, you don't have to worry about me. And then I realized as the tears were running down his face, those tears weren't for me. He responded softly by telling me that when he was a child, he had witnessed his mother get raped by his father. He told me that he had never shared that story with anyone. I felt honored that he felt comfortable enough to share that with me. In that moment, I witnessed the power of sharing, because brave truly multiplies brave. My trauma left scars that only I can see, but through sharing my experiences and my struggles with my mental health, I was able to turn a lifelong friend into my brother. I realized that my fear were shackles, and that by sharing my fears, I had freed myself and inspired my brother to do the same. Human beings are capable of achieving beautiful heights of resilience, but in order to demonstrate resilience, we must first experience difficulties. So if you feel like you're tired, or if you want to give up, please consider asking for help. You are not alone. More so, once you embark on this journey to seek help, you will inevitably inspire others to do the same. To anyone who's listening, I just want to tell you that I believe in you. I believe in your dreams. And to anyone who is still listening, I want you to know that you are loved. My name is David Andrade, and this is My Brave.
Thank you for attending our This Is My Brave College Edition 2021 virtual show. Mental illness and mental health challenges are more common than we know, especially among college students. Our Brave College cast was able to shine a light today on a topic that we don't talk about enough through the power of storytelling. We are all affected by mental illness, and simply being here today was an incredible start to building upon a movement of people who are willing to be more open and supportive to those struggling. We hope that you'll think of This Is My Brave and that you'll use this experience you've shared with us today as a way to start the conversation and keep it going. This is what it means to live brave.